There is a moment in astrology which I believe is one of the most quietly profound ones. And it's not when you discover your sun sign or even your rising sign or your moon sign. It's when you learn to look at your chart as a whole and understand that the balance of energies that you were born with tells an incredibly profound story about how you experience just about everything in your life. Today, we're talking about the 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. Every single planet in your chart falls into one of these 4, and they tell an incredibly interesting story, not just about how you think, but also how you feel, how you manifest, how you show up for other people in your life, and how you deal with things when they begin falling apart. This is one of those topics that seems so simple at the outset, but once you gain a deeper understanding, not only will you understand yourself on such a deeper level, but also everyone around you. So before we get into what they actually mean in your natal chart, first let's make sure that we are on the same page about what each element actually represents. And these don't just show up in astrology. They're not exclusive to astrology. They show up in a lot of different frameworks all around the world because we do look at them as fundamental building blocks of life itself. So let's start with fire. The 3 signs in astrology that are ruled by fire are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Fire is life force in and of itself. It's enthusiasm, it's inspiration, it's vigor, it's that spark that motivates you to not just lay around and laze about all day, but to actually do something with your life, to create something, to experience something new. At its best, fire energy is magnetic, it's inspiring, it's driven by identity and courage and even a little bit of idealism. It's literally the spark that starts things, that begins something, that takes us to a new, higher level of whatever our experience might be. On its shadow side, the issue with fire can be that sometimes it burns too hot. It becomes impulsive, it becomes impatient, it can become a little bit angry sometimes, or it can become so focused on what's behind the horizon that it totally forgets to enjoy life in the present moment. Then we have the earth element. The zodiac signs ruled by earth are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. Earth is very grounded, whereas fire looks at what's ahead and what can be built and what's new. Earth is very, very grounded in the present moment. It's very physical. It allows us to actually enjoy the things that we are surrounded by. It gives us pleasure and it gives us the grounded capability to not just start something, but to actually see it through to the end. Earth at its best is very reliable and also very practical. The earth element is what helps us see what is actually relevant for us in the present moment, not in some kind of fantasy future or past scenario. The shadow side of earth is that earth can be very stubborn. It can be very resistant to change, even when that change is actually for the better, and it can be very avoidant of any form of discomfort. Then we have the air element, and the signs ruled by air are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Air is the element of the intellect, of the mind, of communication, and it gains meaning through exchanges with people. Air always seeks conversation. It seeks the proliferation of ideas and ideals. It always aspires to gain more information, to exchange experiences with others. At its best, the air element is curious. It's very fair-minded as well. It is able to see the balance and create balance between a lot of different parties. The air element can be very articulate. It brings the beauty into the words that we use to communicate with each other, and very, very socially open-minded. And the shadow side of the air element is that it can be very detached, not just from emotions, but also from the lived experience. When the air element is taken too far or taken to its shadow side, it kind of loses its grip on our actual lived experience, and that's what matters. And it gets so caught up in ideas that it kind of lives in its own world. That's where the phrasing of having your head in the clouds can come from as well. And then we have the water element, and that one rules the signs of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. The water element is the element of emotions, of the unseen, and of our intuition. It's the element that is most connected to our soul and the things that we just understand on a higher level without being able to rationally explain them or quite put our finger on them. It's very much connected to the non-material world. Water at its best is very, very perceptive, not on an intellectual level, but it feels the undercurrents of everything that is going on. Water is also incredibly compassionate and very creatively gifted. But the shadow side of water is that because it feels so much, it can easily become overwhelmed, or it can get so caught up in other people's emotions that it either totally withdraws or that it loses sight of what belongs to whom. Okay, so now is where it gets personal. So I would like you to pull up your chart and look at the placements of all of the major planets and of your angles and your north and south node, and have a look at which element all of them fall into. Each one will be assigned to one element. Some people will be very dominant in one particular element. Some people will have a mixture of two, maybe three. In very rare cases, some people have an almost perfect balance between all of the elements. So just look at that now and pay attention, and then we're going to go into detail about what that means and how to make the most of that. So here's the thing. When somebody is very dominant in one particular element, as soon as they enter into the room, everybody feels it. So we're going to start with dominant fire. When a person who has a fire dominant chart, a lot of fire in their natal chart, enters a room, everybody feels it. Everybody gets a little bit more extroverted. There is a buzz in the air. There's more activity. People with a lot of fire in their chart have a lot of this get up and go energy, but not just within themselves. They actually have the ability to bring that up in others as well. This is where people perk up. They kind of get bored of just sitting around and talking to each other. They want to do something. Let's go see something. Let's do some kind of activity. That's the effect that a fire dominant person has. If you have a lot of fire in your chart, you're someone who leads with energy and vision. And this is not something that you have to think about. It just happens naturally. You probably feel most alive when you are pursuing something that genuinely excites you. But the one issue with very fire dominant charts can be that there can be a lack of patience and a lack of follow through. It's a lot easier to start things than actually see them through to the end. That bit tends to be quite boring for people who have a lot of fire in their chart, because they are so motivated by this excitement, which eventually, as with all things, will fizzle out. And for manifestation, fire energy is incredibly powerful at the initiation stage, to have that spark of inspiration and to also reach for things that excite you and that are just a little bit out of your reach right now. You're very good at pushing yourself and challenging yourself and going after the big goals. If you're someone with a very earth dominant chart, you are someone who immediately grounds everything as you enter the room. People just calm down. They feel more safe. They feel kind of almost held when somebody enters the room with a lot of earth energy. You are somebody who does have that follow through. Somebody with a very earth heavy chart is actually very good at the routine. They're not so good at the initiation stage, but they're very good at following through, of doing just a little action day after day after day after day, which then eventually compounds over time. What you might be challenged with if you have a lot of earth in your chart is thinking a little bit beyond your means, of challenging yourself regularly, and of pursuing anything that is intangible, because Earth likes to measure, it likes things to be solid and graspable. So you may not be so naturally good at working with things that are non-measurable, like emotions, like fulfillment, like love, for example. For manifestation, the earth element is most powerful at the action stage of consistently taking action towards your goals. You can outwork and outperform and outpatience anyone on the planet, honestly, with a lot of earth in your chart. While everyone else has given up 2 weeks ago because they just can't hack it anymore, you're still chugging along and you're working towards those goals. If you have a chart that's dominant in air, when a very air-heavy person enters the room, conversation just sparks up. People start talking, people start connecting. It will be the air dominant person that might be sparking a lot of the conversations, but just being near them gets people to be more chatty. So if you have a lot of air in your chart, you're probably quite curious. You are probably researching stuff a lot of the time, whether that be through, research on the internet, reading a book, or just talking to people. You like finding out from people what might be interesting and relevant information. People with a lot of air in their chart do tend to be very smart, and their thinking can be ahead of the curve a lot of the time. So sometimes people can't quite follow where you are because your mind is just so quick that you are already on step A, B, C, D, E, while they're still struggling with step B. And the challenge with a very air dominant chart is that you can get lost in your head sometimes, or get so caught up in trying to understand something from every possible position and angle that you are just paralyzed. You can get analysis paralysis. For the manifestation process, the part that the air element excels at is the clarity stage. You can really articulate and communicate a vision that you have beautifully, and it can be easier for you to get other people on board because they just understand so well where you are going. If your chart is dominant in water, when a water dominant person enters the room, you feel seen. You feel seen on such a fundamental level. You cannot BS a person with a lot of water in their chart, especially Scorpios, but Pisces and Cancer is just as perceptive. They see into your soul. The one thing that might be more challenging for you if you have a very water dominant chart is actually translating what you feel and what you understand into logical steps. It's very difficult to articulate a lot of the things that come through water energy because we don't even have the words for the things that water energy understands don't even exist a lot of the time. Where you are brilliant in the manifestation process is at the receiving stage, because with a very water dominant chart, you naturally understand energy and the way it flows, and you are able to actually open yourself up for what you are calling in, which is a very underrated and not talked about step in the manifestation process.
Thank you for watching the first part of this video. If you'd like to learn more about what it means when there is an element entirely missing from a natal chart, or if you are one of those incredibly rare people who have a perfect balance of all 4 elements, then make sure that you come back next week for part 2. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you soon.